Okay, the AQA GCSE Geography 2019, Paper 3, pre-release or advanced information booklet. Let's go through the resources and we'll have a look at some questions that some colleagues have made up. Okay, unusual on this year, figure 1 is a load of background information about tropical rainforests. A lot of it will help support your Energy for Life module, of course. So let's have a look at the kinds of things that we've got in here. We've got a classic global map, so we might be looking for some some distribution questions. Just bear in mind, you've got 3 broad regions. You've got Asia, Southeast Asia, in fact, you've got Central Africa, and you've got South America. Don't be lazy with your language. It's not just Africa, it's Central Africa. Remember that adjective presents it in a much better place than just a broad comment. Down here, we've got climate data. That sniffs of, complete the graph. They may make a graph template. They may give you the rainfall and get you to add the temperature, or they may plot all the points bar 1 month, for example, but just be accurate, good, sharp, dark pencil. And then down here, tropical rainforest ecosystem, in case you didn't know about it. But one thing that strikes me down here is the amount of detail there is about recycling and species. So ecosystem questions, biome questions, etc. That goes on to the second part of figure 1, which continues the kind of a background on tropical rainforest. So lots of stuff which you've probably met anyway in different kinds of textbooks. So anything different in here that one can spot that might be useful? Well, you've got the uses and the importance of rainforest. Just make sure you've got in your mind, and I like to think of it as a first-person shoot-'em-up game, in your backpack of weapons you can quickly recycle. One of the things you need to be able to think about is, why are rainforests important? So they're important for local economies, subsistence slash and burn, what's actually called rotational cultivation. You've got the national scale, where if they can sell off very expensive wood and export them, a government can then service its national debt. And then you've got all things in between, road building for improvement of infrastructure, the Chinese very much helping in that, thank you very much. And then you've got down here all of this about specific flora, plants, and fauna, animals from the rainforest. Probably worth remembering 1 or 2 quickly. Cortisone comes from wild llama. Well, there we go. Who'd have thought it? Remember, you don't need to know the facts. You just need to be able to need to know where to go for the facts, and they're all there. Some questions to help you. This one is one that I think you need to really be able to get a high quality answer to. The paradox, the thing that doesn't make sense. Big, lush vegetation, but in fact a very infertile soil. How can a very infertile soil still lead to big, lush vegetation? And in fact, what happens when I remove the vegetation? Well, of course, once you remove the vegetation, you start reducing the recycling of organic matter going into the soil by the good old munchies and the bacteria and everything else, the decomposers, which then liberate the nutrients for the trees. The problem is, if you take away the trees, there's no nutrients, and equally you've got a load of rainfall, as shown from your climate graph, which leaches out the nutrients. So you end up with a really infertile soil, which and yet a very fertile biome. Remove the vegetation by deforestation, and you're left with nothing. And you may find that that is a kind of focus of questions, because there's quite a bit about soils in there. Okay, figure 2. Goes on to talk about deforestation. So figure 1, all about the background, you know all that stuff, and you may have met some of this stuff before. A couple of questions, 6 markers on there. Remember this using evidence. Where it says using evidence, you've got to learn to lift, extract, and quote. Don't be broad, actually quote. So you've got some figures in and amongst here, and you've got some figures you can read off from graphs. Again, graphs are classic. They may reprint the graph and ask you to annotate it, and they reprint the graph and ask you to describe the trends. So there's some clear things that happened in here, and there's a year in here where there's a significant drop in rates of deforestation. Why is that? We'll have a look. 07, 08, big recession around the world, reduction of the demand for construction, reduction of the demand possibly leading to less deforestation. All right, just look at it. Don't just think, oh yeah, it's a graph. Think about what and why and what happened. And this right-hand one, interestingly, that why is it that some countries, there were increased rates in deforestation, why is it that others decreased? And you need to think about the nature of some of these countries. Indonesia, N-E-E-E-E-E-E, a very rapidly economically growing country, massive rates of deforestation, lots of industry. Is Indonesia pushed with industrialization and sacrificing its forest? Whereas Mexico, Laos, Cambodia, Brazil, have they had such high rates of deforestation already that in fact global pressure is getting them to reduce the deforestation rates? Might it be that people like Ed Sheeran on tour right now, biggest tour ever, 200 and something days, blah, 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 is he offsetting his carbon emissions from all those flying around by buying areas and employing companies to actually deliberately go tree planting, which may mean another form of income for these people in some of these countries to stop them deforesting? So quite a lot underneath there, but all you need to be able to do is think about, oh, there's a difference. Some countries less, some countries more. Why is that? What are the pressures? And then down here, you've got the classic, in 100 years, there'll be no tropical rainforest, etc. Probably there may not be. However, as I just mentioned with my Ed Sheeran example, new economics actually will give value to the rainforest in greater amounts than just the medicines we've seen before. And might we actually see that those people in HICs demanding that we reduce carbon emissions may now already be beginning to see deforestation rates taking the indigenous growth, where people are going into the forest and they're finding subsistence areas, very difficult to see that slowing down until countries' demographic change. Birth rates have come down, death rates are equal to birth rates. And then one other thing on this, down here it mentions the Paris Climate Accord. It's linking climate change in European countries to rates of deforestation. So again, the smell of making that link between pressures in very wealthy countries to reduce carbon emissions, and remember that's in the Paris Accord mentioned down here, those are actually possibly leading already to reductions of some pressures on deforestation. Not all, as I say, you've got local, you've got commercial, you've got national scale drivers of deforestation, but now we've got drivers of reforestation or afforestation. This continues on, again, this idea, make sure you understand all the different reasons why deforestation is going on. And there's so much data in this graph down here that almost anything could be used. And I would pay particular attention to the tiny, tiny icons here and be able to understand, what are the drivers locally of deforestation? And they're represented. So we've got soya, beef, oil palms, and then we've got pulp, where you just take the wood fiber and it's used for various things like plasterboard, which of course is linked to construction, etc., etc. A couple of very basic questions that we've given you there from my colleagues around the country who've contributed things in here. Then figure 3, we finally get to Peru. So this is our the build-up to our really important local decision-making exercise. And you can read it yourself, be aware of it. You've got some issue. Notice in here, middle-income country, but it doesn't put MIC in big letters. I don't know why. Perhaps I'm alighting on nothing important. Snapshot top trump of Peru, good background. And then talking about roads specifically. One particular driver of deforestation is what we're beginning to look at. We're looking at road building. And that takes you finally to the kinds of decision-making question you can guarantee. 9 marks plus 3 for SPAG. And you've got very specific things in here which are linking rural areas to national poverty. And that scale, moving between scale, is a really important high-level geographical thing to be able to do, to be able to talk about down on the left-hand side. Economic progress of Peru, which may be helped by, if you like, being able to make money out of not deforesting, whereas before deforesting was a way to make money. You need to talk to your teacher, or by all means drop me a question. I'll stop for now. I can't give you access to the actual pre-release material because there are some copyright images on there, but I will make the questions available on the link beneath, so you can rip them off and play with them as you like. Good luck. I may do another video if other things come along later on.